So I watch a YouTube video, or I should say, listen to ASMR while I sleep, or to help me go to sleep. And then I wake up in the middle of my night because I work night shift to feed my cat, take my pills, curl back up, go back to bed. Turned on YouTube again, slipped on an ASMR channel, and got ready to fall back asleep when a wonderful advertisement for a new movie um, hit. The Woman King. Those who know me will know. I'll be unsurprised. I will not watch this movie. Not going to watch it at all. It features as its main hero protagonist the Dahomey people, who ironically are fighting off the British and the French, but mostly the British in this movie for some reason, because those were British uniforms and British ships. But even though technically the Dahomey only ever fought the French, whatever. Um, they did fight the English too, but not in how most people think so. They mostly fought the British because the British were trying to stop the Atlantic slave trade, which is how the Dahomey made all their money. The Dahomey were the most well known fact of the African tribes from European because they made all of their money through conquesting their neighbors and selling it to the Atlantic slave trade. Brits didn't like that. So they're the Dahomey lasted from about 1600 to 1904. Um, Basically, what destroyed their reign of power is when slave trade was finally utterly destroyed. They just trickled down into nothing, slowly losing their land until they no longer existed, and thus causing the death of the Dahomey. But yeah, so Hollywood has decided to base a movie on historical facts and then flip around the good guy and the bad guy because skin tone. Oh, also because the Dahomey Amazons, the female warrior race of people that once they were really, from what we know of them, because the Dahomey are some of the most well documented African tribes. The Dahomey Amazons, while good warriors for their African tribes, and they were ish, they were very much reminiscent of the entire female palace guard of another certain Middle Eastern warlord who kept them around as pretty sex slaves and soldiers to be pretty to look at. They were mostly used in ritual, very rarely ever seen actually in combat, because the only time they were in combat was around the king. The battle they're taking using to take place here was actually during a coup, which was funded by a Brazilian trader, because at the moment France had signed a treaty with England that none of its colonies, or basically none of its, that they would help them with crushing the Atlantic slave trade. So at this moment, the king of Dahomey, who was beholden to the French, stopped selling slaves. And the Dahomey people didn't like that because that's where they get all their money. So they, using the money from a Brazilian slave trader, uh, because that's actually where most slaves from the Atlantic slave trade went. Most of them went to South America and Mexico. South America, the Isles, all that. That's where most of them went. A lot of them went to North America as well, the southern part of North America. But most of them went down because America after America banned the importation of slaves, which didn't stop slave trade or slavery at all. But after they banned the importation of slaves, because I would pretending that would fix anything, the slave trade just kept trading, just traded to, Cuba, Asia, all those other places down there, and that's Haiti and all the others. That's why Haiti got so full of slaves. They're just like, hey, let's take over the place, and the Haitian Rebellion happened, and they gained their independence, became free. Good for them. And then a hurricane came and smashed their economy into pieces. Not so good for them. And then they got taken advantage of again, and not so, anyways. But yeah, so this Hollywood movie is taking historical fact, the fact that the Dahomey in the 1840s began to face their decline because of skirmishes with the British to abolish the slave trade, which included a huge, massive naval blockade, which they do show in the movie, and the tons of anti-slavery patrols along the coast. This, by the way, this is just from Wikipedia that I'm taking this part from. I'll even read it verbiage. In the 1840s, Dahomey began to face decline with the British pressure to abolish the slave trade, which included the British Royal Navy imposing a naval blockade against the kingdom and enforcing its anti-slavery patrols near its coast. During this time period, Dahomey was also then weakened, had a defeat from the Abokeda and Yoruba city-states, which were founded as safe havens for refugees who were escaping the slave raids of the Dahomey people. The Dahomey later began experiencing territorial tensions with France, which led to the First Franco-Dahomeyan War in 1890, resulting in a French victory. The kingdom finally fell in 1894 when the last king, Benzin, was defeated by France in the Second War, leading to the country being annexed to the French West Africa as a colony of the French Dahomey. So the war that they're portraying in the movie, I couldn't quite tell if it was the first Dahomeyan War or the second Franco-Dahomeyan War, which were both fought over the Dahomeyan right to sell black people. Because the Dahomey are not good guys. You don't get to be called a good guy when you make all of your money selling people and off of slavery. That's why antebellum South does not get to call themselves good guys. The Confederate States of America don't get to call themselves good guys. You don't. When you make your money and your culture is so dependent on slavery that you have to fight wars over it, Confederate States of America or the Dahomey, because people go, well, slavery's bad, let's shut it down. Instead, if you can't adapt to that and you have to fight a war to protect your immoral practices, you shouldn't get a Hollywood movie saying, hey, look at these wonderful people. The Dahomey Amazonians were slave soldiers. They were child soldiers brought in as young women to look pretty, to be raped, repeatedly raped by the king, and to be brainwashed into defending him with their life. The Dahomey were a despicable people. Which it would make a lot of sense why today's Hollywood would love them so much. Because it seems like today's Hollywood loves segregation and loves slavery. And uh, like, it's like that meme I keep saying, because the Democrats have never been so angry since we took away their slaves. They can't seem to give it up. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. But sweet, just calm down, okay? You can't have slaves, people. Slavery's not good. And the fact that people are praising a movie based where the good guys are the slavers and the bad guys are the anti-slavery patrol That's all I need to know. That I don't want anything to do with Hollywood anymore. I haven't seen a Hollywood movie in forever, and I'm gonna continue not watching Hollywood. Like the end of their civilization of the Dahomey people was slavery being taken away. Their rise and their fall is entirely based on the Atlantic slave trade. The Atlantic slave trade during the rise of the 1600s, selling all of their wonderful, neighbors, their criminals. Well, it starts with your criminals but then you run out of those. So then you start going around, you're collecting the tribes around them. I mean, two city states, massive city states, were formed from refugees from these people coming through and taking everyone and selling them to slaves. And Hollywood has decided to make them the good guys. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Maybe I can sleep better tonight. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and I refuse to watch this movie. I refuse to watch anything coming out of the moral bankrupt depravity that is Hollywood.